silence. Good afternoon to all of you present here. With great approbation, I welcome you all to this august gathering. I am Mr. Tarandeep Singh and I am going to compare the event. Guru Purnima is a festival dedicated to spiritual and academic teachers. This festival is celebrated to express the love for the teachers and to show the plethora of gratitude. And on this blissful day, we thank all our teachers who provide us with heaps of guidance and knowledge, who along with our parents helps us to be a better person than we were yesterday. And to celebrate this festival today, we have amidst us a man of honor, Dr. Narendra Jadhav. To give the introduction of this eminent personality, I invite respected Dr. Tidke on the desk.
It's a rarest of the rare event for all of us today. It's perhaps God's design that we have gathered here today on this very auspicious occasion, the Guru Purnima day, to listen to this scholastic speech of a truly international persona, none other than Dr. Narendra Jadhav, a noted bureaucrat, leading economist, policy maker, well-known social scientist, and best-selling author. I am honored to present to you very briefly this towering personality whom former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh once described as a role model for the disempowered millions in our country. Entering in the shoes of Dr. Manmohan Singh and Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Dr. Narendra Jadhav is the next generation great economist of India and hails from our very own Maharashtra. Ladies and gentlemen, in Dr. Jadhav, we have an icon from the Mumbai slums who is the true inspiration for the underprivileged youth who aspire to reach tall heights in financial, academic and literary arenas. He is a story of determination and inspiration to millions of disempowered citizens who feel empowered and to live in a new life of dignity. His is an inspiring story of a journey of an untouchable genius from a village to the Indian and international middle class. He has shown how the wrong can be changed by working within the system, rising within by educating ourselves rather than waiting for emancipation. His is a story of modern India, its potential and hopeful future for India. Friends, Dr. Narendra Jadhav is currently serving as Member Planning Commission of Government of India with rank and status of that of Union Minister of State. You are aware that Planning Commission is India's apex policy-oriented think tank chaired by Prime Minister. Dr. Narendra Jadhav has also been appointed as member of the National Advisory Council with effect from 31st May 2010. Earlier, Dr. Jadhav was Vice Chancellor of University of Pune, the largest traditional university in the world with 6.5 lakhs students from during 2006 to 2009. In a period of less than 3 years, under his leadership, a metamorphic transformation of the university was brought about, making it a dynamic, vibrant, socially conscious, and indeed a model state university, which is amongst the most favored destinations for foreign students in India. You will be happy to know that about 45% of the foreign students coming to India study at the University of Pune, such as the popularity that was created under his able guidance. Dr. Jadhav is an economist par excellence. The turning point which made him an economist was when he went to Missouri to meet his elder brother, an IAS officer under training. There he read a book, Poverty in India, which impacted him, and he decided to study economics, giving up science. He started his career with State Bank of India as grade 1 officer in 74. Then he moved to Reserve Bank of India and served it for 31 years before taking voluntary retirement in October 2008 from the position of Principal Advisor and Chief Economist. While at RBI, he steered a team of 120 career economists and played a significant role in macroeconomic policy making in India, especially after the macroeconomic crisis of 1991. He worked at the International Monetary Fund for 4.5 years, firstly as advisor to Executive Director for India, and then briefly as a consultant to the Independent Evaluation Office of the International Monetary Fund. He was also advisor to the government of Ethiopia and later worked as Chief Economic Counselor for Afghanistan. In 2008, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra appointed him as the chairman of one-man high-powered committee in the context of farmers' suicides, an issue of concern to all of us. Dr. Jadhav Committee's report has been accepted by the government and is being implemented. A wonderful thing about Dr. Jadhav is that he is a prolific writer, a social scientist, and a renowned author. He has authored more than 100 research papers, written or edited 30 books on economics and social issues, including 12 books on Dr. Ambedkar. His latest contributions are 2 books in Marathi on Rabindranath Tagore. One is an anthology of Gurudev's poems translated into Marathi, and the other one, which is due to be released, is on Gurudev's life and times. Dr. Jadhav shot to fame with his biological novel, written in both Marathi and English. It's titled Amsa Baap and Ami. It was in 1993, which was a runaway bestseller with the combined sales exceeding 5 lakh copies, which has also been translated now in 17 languages, including French, Spanish, Korean, and Thai, as well as several Indian languages. Friends, it's a must-read book for all of us. The book has received several awards, including the coveted Sahitya Academy Award for its Punjabi version. The book is now being translated into Japanese, Chinese, and several European languages. Dr. Jadhav has authored around 30 major official reports besides serving on a number of committees. He has also delivered a series of memorial lectures, keynote addresses in national and international forums. He is a celebrated figure, renowned for his oratory excellence. He is a celebrated public figure and has featured in Time magazine, which is a rare thing, International Herald Tribune, and was also on the cover page of the world famous publication Reader's Digest. He has participated in discussions on almost all leading national and international TV channels. Dr. Jadhav is a recipient of as many as 63 national and international awards for his contribution to the fields of economics, education, literature, culture, and social work, and many more. The awards include 4 honorary D.Litt. degrees and the title of the Commander of Order of Academic Palms by the government of France. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great personality with us. We have always read in the newspapers words like global economy, world economy, the Greece crisis, economics, and the impact on India. Friends, we are here today to learn from this towering personality a few glimpses of what Indian economy is and how the world economies are impacting us. Today, we are fortunate to get an opportunity to get these glimpses. Let us put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome Dr. Jadhav amidst us. And let us get blessed by the wisdom showers that will be showering on us. Welcome, sir. You are invited to address the gathering.
I would request our Honorable Director, Dr. Preeti Bajaj ma'am, to welcome our chief guest with a floral bouquet. I would now request our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Narendra Jadhav, to come on the dais and bless us with his knowledge.
Dr. Preeti Bajaj, the faculty of various educational institutions under the Raiswani Group, Dr. CK, other faculty members of various institutions here, and my dear friends. It's indeed a pleasure as well as a great honor to be here with you today, and I'm indeed delighted to be here. I'm here because of Dr. Preeti Bajaj. When she learned that I was coming to Nagpur, and she immediately seized the opportunity and persuaded me to come and speak to all of you. And indeed, I'm very happy and delighted that I have got this opportunity. I've heard very good things about this institution. I've heard good things about all of you, and I'm very happy indeed to be with you to talk about a subject about which you know nothing or very little. I've always believed that everyone, no matter what is your subject of interest, you must know minimum of two things. One is economics, another is law. Whether you are an engineer, whether you are a doctor, whether you are an accountant, whatever you are, you must know the basics of these two things, because economics is a subject which runs your life, and you must know what is happening around. You must be able to read what you read in the newspapers. You must be able to read that intelligently, because if you do not understand what is going around you, you may be a great expert in your own super specialization, but if you do not know what is happening around and where the country is going, you will be lost. You must have that broad picture. And that is what I am going to talk to you about. I am going to talk to you about global economic scenario, because lots of things have been happening, and these things are going to, in the interdependent world that we have, these things are going to impact all of us, everybody, irrespective of your field of expertise. So what we are going to talk about, what I want to do is in very simple terms, I want to give you a perspective on exactly what is going on in the global economy and talk about what possible impact it can have on Indian economy of which you are a part. And this is therefore something that you must know, and that broad picture I intend to give you today. And I'm going to tell you this, many of you must have hated economics when you studied, or many of you may not have gone that way to learn economics at all. I am going to tell you, and you will realize it very soon by the end of this lecture, I guarantee that each one of you would be interested in economics, because this is impacting our lives so much, and I'm going to explain how. And I'm going to not write any equations, I'm not going to throw big numbers. I'm going to tell you what is happening in the global economy as a story. And this story will start from a very long time. You know, everybody must have heard about a concept called GDP, Gross Domestic Product. GDP is your national income. In a particular year, what is the value addition? What is the sum total of value addition made by all human beings in India? That would be called GDP of India in that year. Now, GDP is a concept. Every country publishes the numbers of GDP and the growth, real economic growth in terms of growth of GDP. Everybody does that. Dr. Abdul Kalam, our former president who died recently, I want to start with a small anecdote about Dr. Abdul Kalam. You know, before he became the President of India, he was on the board of directors of the Reserve Bank of India, where I served for 31 years. And he was very inquisitive. As a student, he will keep asking questions. Some of those questions were actually silly. But he would ask, as a member of the board of directors, he would not hesitate to ask those questions. One day, I remember in the board meeting of Reserve Bank of India, Dr. Bimal Jalan was the governor of RBI. And in the meeting, suddenly Dr. Kalam raised his hand. And he said, Governor, please tell me, what is the GDP business? I say, you know, he had this particular style of talking. What is this GDP business? Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Can you explain to me, when does it go up and when does it go down? Actually, that was a very simple question to be asked in a board meeting of RBI. But Dr. Jalan decided to make some fun out of this. So Dr. Jalan said, Dr. Kalam, it's very simple. You hire a maid servant, start paying salary to the maid servant, the GDP of the country will go up. He said, yes, I understand that. Then tomorrow, you get married to that maid servant, stop paying her salary, and GDP of the country will go down. Dr. Kalam's reaction was that this economics, I'm never going to be able to understand. I will stick to rocket science, that is easier for me than economics. The point is that GDP, you know, these are basic concepts, very important. Now GDP of the country is calculated by all countries. They all calculate GDP and the numbers are published. Some but GDP is a relatively new concept. This concept came into being in 1945, around the Second World War, end of the Second World War. One American scientist did an experiment, an economist. He said, what must have been the GDP of old civilization like India? What must have been GDP of India and China, say 1,000 years ago? And he actually tried to calculate based on whatever information he could put together. And what did he come up with? This will be music to your ears. He is the first person who made the estimate of GDP of India in the year 1, when Jesus Christ was born and when the Gregorian calendar started. So he did that for year 1, then year 500, then year 1000, then year 1500, and then 1600, 1700, 1800, and after that, everybody has done that for the rest of the year. What did he find? He found what we call now superpower. India and China were always the superpowers in the world in the first millennium, from year 1 to year 1000. Some years, 150 years, India would be leading China, number 1 country. Some years, China would be leading India. This was happening those days, but India was a superpower. In the year 1, what was the share of India in the global production? In the global production, India's share in the year 1, according to this Professor Madison, Angus Madison, who did this study, he says that India's share in the global economy in the year 1 was as much as 31.5%. That means 1/3 of the world production came from India alone. Today, it is less than 5%. At that time, it was as much as 31.5%. Lots of things happened, so let's not go into all those details why India's share declined. But the fact remains that by the time of independence in 1947, India was a very poor country, and for 100 years before 1947, what was the rate of economic growth of India? 0%. So we were flat. We are not growing at all. We were stagnant. This happened until the year 1947. In 1947, we became independent. And then in 1951, we started what is called planned economic development. And then a lot of things happened. But before we trace what happened to India, let us first understand what happened to the world. There was a big world war from 1939 to 1945. And that was devastating war, World War II, which had huge, devastating impact on the world economy everywhere. Now, end of the World War, all the countries came together in a place called Bretton Woods in United States. They all came together and there was a conference of all the heads of state in the world, and that is the famous conference called Bretton Woods Conference. And they took some very important decisions were made which impacted the world economy. First of all, they decided how the world economy will function in future. One of the first things that they decided that which would be the countries that are going to rule, or which are the countries which are going to lead the world economy. They identified 3 groups of countries as engines of growth. First was, of course, United States. Second was Western Europe. And the third was Japan. These 3 countries were supposed to, or 3 groups of countries were supposed to lead the world in terms of taking the world economy forward. And there was an unwritten rule that if one of them falters, remaining 2 will come forward and take on the mantle of maintaining the momentum of global economy. So they were called engines of growth. If 2 of them falter, the third one is going to come forward. This was not a law, but this was an unwritten law that continued for nearly 55 years, from 1945 to year 2000. That was one thing that was decided for the world economic order, one. Second, they decided that there would be 3 international institutions. One would be the International Monetary Fund, the second would be World Bank, and third would be what was called GATT at that time, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, GATT, which was renamed in 1995 as the World Trade Organization. Now these organizations were created. I can assure you, now World Bank and IMF are on the same street in Washington DC, and I work with both of them, and they are facing each other on the same road. Most people don't understand the difference between the IMF and World Bank. It's very important to understand. In very simple terms, what is the difference between the IMF and World Bank? IMF is like an intensive care unit, whereas World Bank is like a gymnasium. So if you look at it as a country, if you are in a very serious trouble, where will you go to? You have no choice but you go to the IMF for taking the loan, International Monetary Fund. So for dire stress, if you are in a dire stress, you go to IMF for loan. But World Bank is for your long-term health. It is not for short-term emergency help. For long-term projects, for building roads, constructing dams, and so many other things, World Bank would be giving small interest-free loans to the developing countries. So World Bank is like a gymnasium where you go to build your health. But if you fail to build your health, and if there are any emergencies, medical emergencies, then you go to IMF to take the help from IMF when the problem arises. This was created at that time. The third thing that was created at that time was fixed exchange rate system. Now exchange rate system, there is a lot of confusion among lot of people about exchange rate. Everybody thinks that strong currency means the strong economy. Absolutely wrong. Lot of people have this. In fact, one of our national leaders had once said that if we come to power, I can name Mr. Advani had said that many years back, that if we come to power, we will make rupee as strong as Himalaya. If the currency becomes very strong, do you know it is very bad for the country? Strong currency doesn't mean strong economy, and weak currency doesn't mean weak economy. But I'm going to come to that. It started with the Bretton Woods Conference when the fixed exchange rate system was decided. It's very, very interesting. This is like a story, like a thriller. You see, what happened was, every country was told, now when the countries were divided, first of all the issue was how to pay for your imports and exports. Now if we are selling something to Timbuktu, they are not going to take Indian rupees there, or we are not going to take Timbuktu currency. So they needed currencies which will be acceptable everywhere. So United States dollar emerged as a reserve currency, acceptable to everybody. So any two countries trading with each other will pay for each other, import and export, they will pay for in dollars. Dollar was like gold. So dollar was given a reserve currency status, and that was acceptable to everybody. So dollar was given a reserve currency status, and it was also decided, every country was told, you decide what is the equivalence of your currency in terms of gold, what was called gold points. So if currency A has 4 gold points and currency B has 8 gold points, currency B would be twice as large as currency A. That was a simple calculation. So there was, at some level, based on the gold content, it was decided what should be the exchange rate. Those exchange rates were fixed. At that time, rupee dollar rate was 4.5 rupees per dollar. Today it is 64 rupees. At that time it was 4.5 rupees. And they decided that no country can change their exchange rate without taking the permission of the International Monetary Fund. This was the rule. This was the rule, and that continued for a long time. Everything went on very well. Now, what had happened was, when United States offered the world that we will use dollar as a reserve currency for the entire trade in the world, there were some skeptics who were saying that dollar after all is a piece of paper. Why should we go on accumulating dollars? So there must be some equivalence between the dollar currency and gold. So United States gave in writing to all the countries signing the Treaty of IMF and the World Bank that anybody who accumulates dollars, if you don't want your dollars, give that to us and we will give it back to you in terms of gold. And the rate was decided that at certain rate, gold will, the dollars would be redeemed in terms of gold. So everybody was happy that no harm in collecting this piece of paper called dollar. Because if we don't want that, we can always give it back to the United States and get hard gold in terms of the standard rate. So everybody was happy. What happened was, in the 50s and 60s, United States, it started having deficit on their balance of payments. In the sense that United States started buying more from other countries than what it was selling abroad. Particularly, two countries which were enemies of United States at that time were involved, Germany and Japan. These two countries were having surplus and against the United States. That means Germany and Japan were selling a lot more to United States than what United States was buying from them. As a result, Germany and Japan started accumulating dollars. Now they started, the more the reserve, the more dollars they started accumulating. Now they started getting slightly worried because although United States had given an undertaking that they will redeem the dollar bills, paper bills called dollars in terms of gold, they realized that while the dollar balances are accumulating in Germany and Japan, the gold stock of United States, which is kept in Fort Knox, you must have seen in the movies many times. So the gold stock of United States was not growing fast, it was growing slowly. But the dollar balances were accumulating in other countries very rapidly. So these countries started feeling jittery. What if tomorrow United States says that we don't give you gold in exchange for dollar? Then what? What do we do with this piece of paper? They were mortally afraid that that would happen. And believe it or not, it actually happened. And the day was our Independence Day. 15 August 1971, President Nixon was the President of the United States. He announced that we don't give a damn. I mean, these were not his words, but in effect he said that we don't give a damn. We refuse to give you gold in exchange for dollars. If you don't want dollars, do what you like, but we refuse to give you gold back in exchange for dollars. So you can imagine that shook the world, and this shock came from United States. As a result, the fixed exchange rate system collapsed. the fixed exchange system collapsed, started collapsing from that announcement day of 15th August 1971. By February 1973, fixed exchange system was gone. So some countries were freely floating, some countries were managed floating, some countries were dirty floating, and some countries will continue to be fixed. But country like India, we continued with the fixed exchange rate, but then instead of aligning ourselves with pound sterling or dollar, we said that we'll align it to a basket of currency. 1976, we aligned ourselves with a basket of currency. And there were many formulas developed. In fact, one of the formula is mine. How do we operate on the exchange rate system? How do we have that formula? How do you reflect your currencies going up and down based on what is happening to other currencies? There are many formulas, we don't want to go into that. But the idea is that rupee was linked with a basket of currencies in 76. And though many countries are saying that they are independently floating, United States says that Japan and everybody says that we are floating independently. Believe it or not, there is no independent floating in the clean sense. Because no country, if you see the statements of RBI chief, you will find the same thing, that we are not entertaining, we are not getting involved in the market, we just watch the situation. But the fact of the matter is that no currency is truly independently floating in the sense that no exchange rate is decided truly by the demand and supply for that currency and against that. It is what the central bank does, central bank of the country like the Reserve Bank of India does, is that it keeps close watch, and if they think that the movements are too bad, then they will intervene, buying or selling of dollar to stabilize the rate. That is what they do. And everybody does that in the world, although they pretend that they are on independent floating. But that's a different issue. The issue is, exchange rate system has become completely flexible or semi-flexible now. Then another thing that happened in 1973 was really shocking. What happened was, can I get that simple water, not the cold water? With a bit couple of water. So another very interesting thing happened in 1973 was that oil prices, the whole world was subject to oil price shock. And how it happened is also very, very interesting. What happened was, there is an organization even today called OPEC, that is Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. OPEC is supposed to have a big bargaining power. Recently that is challenged and we are going to come to that. But what happened was, it is a cartel, they were deciding the price together, but they had not realized their real power that they had. But what happened was, in 1974, there was a Yom Kippur War in Middle East. And during the Yom Kippur War between Israelis and Arabs, Egypt and Israel in particular, what happened was, lots of ships carrying oil, they were stuck in Suez Canal. Because there was number of ships were stuck in the Suez Canal, suddenly there was a shortage in the world. As a result, oil prices shot up in the international market. And then OPEC realized their power to hold everybody at ransom. Do you know how much oil prices rose? In 1 week, oil prices rose by 400%. Earlier to 73, 74, the oil prices were $3 per barrel. From $3 per barrel, it increased to nearly $14 per barrel. So it was unbelievable increase. So suddenly the OPEC realized their power, nuisance value, so they raised the oil prices and the whole world was taken by shock. Countries like India, for example, we were also taken by shock, and what we did was, now 76% of oil that we consume is imported. So we are heavily dependent on oil. So we had no choice but to keep on importing. But for that we had to shell out much more dollars than what we used to do before. So our country entered into a crisis. That happened. Then came the next turning point comes in 1991. Turning point for the world economy as well as for the Indian economy. Let us see what happened in India during that period. We became independent in 1947. We started the so-called planned economic development in 1951. What was our rate of growth between 1951 and 1985? Our rate of growth was only 3.5% per year. What was the rate at which our population was growing? Our population was growing at the rate of 2.2% per year, which meant that our standard of living or our per capita income was rising at a measly rate of only 1.3% per year, which was nothing. Now this was much better than earlier. Earlier we had 0% rate of growth for 100 years. From 0% we jumped to 3.5%, but that we were stuck at 3.5%. In fact, so important was this number 3.5% growth that one of my distinguished predecessors in Planning Commission gave it a name. He called 3.5% as the Hindu rate of growth, because our average was always 3.5%. For a particular year, it was a little more than 3.5%. Next year, it would be a little less than 3.5%. Take average of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, all averages came to 3.5%. So it was as if 3.5% rate of growth was written on our forehead. This went on for a long time. Then in the 80s and 90s, lots of things happened. I'm not going to go through all of them. But 1991 was a big turning point for both, for the world economy as well as for India. Let us talk what happened in India. For different reasons altogether, there was a turning point in 1991. In India, fiscal deficit, that is government's expenditure over the government's revenue, that went on increasing, and it increased very high. Our growth rate slowed down. Inflation rate had gone to 17.5%. So it was very high inflation, very high fiscal deficit, and things were going out of hand. So much so, and what was worse is that our own stock of foreign exchange reserve, every country has a foreign exchange reserve maintained. Why? Because we want to pay for our imports. In 1991, remember that India has always had an impeccable track record of honoring our obligations, our external obligations. But in 1991, we came very close to a default because our foreign exchange reserves had evaporated. We had foreign exchange reserves equal to only 15 days of our import requirement. Only 15 days of our import requirement, which meant that so much was the situation was so bad that we were left with foreign exchange reserve equivalent of only 15 days of our import requirement. That was the time when there was a small party government led by, supported from outside by Congress party, and that was collapsing. The government was coming down, and there was a big crisis in 1991. I'm talking about, and that was the time no country in the world was willing to help us. No IMF help was coming forth, no World Bank help was coming forth, and no country in the world was willing to help us. So we were like, India had become like a patient which is artificially kept alive on oxygen. So we needed that. So we had no choice but to do something drastic. And what was the drastic thing that we did? We decided to auction our gold. We kept our gold as a collateral outside India to be able to get some bridge financing. So bad was the situation. For which, of course, RBI came under a lot of criticism, but I can tell you, when there is an emergency, we have to do it. And you will be amazed to know, very few people in RBI knew that we are doing it. We had kept it as a secret. And the truck which was carrying gold from RBI, those of you who have visited Mumbai would know the Cadbury and the Mahalakshmi temple. There the truck was stuck in the traffic jam, and somebody pointed out to the governor then we have forgotten to insure the gold. So a lot of people were going to get a heart attack, those who knew. Fortunately, nothing went wrong. But the news came out and RBI was criticized that how can you do this? We had to do that because there was no other goal. You know, in Marathi we say that Sagri songa anta yetat paishacha song anta yet nahi. That was the situation. इससे विद्यार्थ्यांना मराठी जास्त लागलं कळते. So what happened in 1991 is that we decided to take out about 47 tons of our gold abroad to the Bank of England. We used that to get some advance money. Now one thing great about our country is this. When things are normal, when things are going normal, we keep fighting with each other. But when there is a crisis, you know, the whole country becomes one. And when we address that crisis as one people, we convert that crisis into an opportunity. This has happened time and again, and that is what happened in 1991. We were rudely shaken by the crisis. Our eyes were opened, and then we realized that we have to make some drastic change. So after getting that short-term financing, what we did was, there was a change of government. Dr. Manmohan Singh became the finance minister. Congress government came back. Manmohan Singh became the finance minister, and then he assured us what is called new economic policy, which is described as LPG, the liquid, liberalization, part privatization, globalization. The word LPG has always meant earlier liquefied petroleum gas, but from 1991, LPG in our country means liberalization, part privatization, globalization. This was what was called new economic policy. Actually, it was new to India. It was not new to the world at all. But we did that. Something which was politically unpalatable earlier could be done because there was a crisis. And after that, Indian economy never looked back. From 1992 to 2002, first 10 years of reform, our growth rate averaged 6% per year. So all that 3.5% nonsense was gone. Average was 6%, 1992 to 2002, 6%. 2002 to 2005, our growth rate was 8% per year. And 2005 to 2008, our growth rate was actually more than 9% per year. So we went close to the magical number of 10%. Now, I was saying that the policy that we followed was LPG. LPG actually is a very incorrect description. There are so many things happening, but as a catchphrase they use it: liberalization, privatization, globalization. There is a lot more to it. China started doing that 13 years before we did. 13 years before we did. 1978 China started those reforms without any crisis. Remember, there was no crisis. India started reforming only when we were shaken by the crisis. China was not shaken by crisis. Still on their own, they started those policies. A lot of people in India, even today, have this big debate between the socialism and the capitalism and about the pros and cons of, people are never tired of talking about it. Deng Xiaoping was once asked in China, he was asked, you are a president of this country, you are a communist country, then how come you follow all these policies which are capitalistic policies? Because what they were doing is by labeling the capitalistic policy. So politically you are a communist country, but in terms of economic policy, you are doing it what the capitalistic countries are doing. How do you explain that? Everybody must remember the answer that he gave. It's an eye-opener. Deng Xiaoping said in his famous quote, I love to give this quote. He said, I don't give a damn whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches the mice. You understand what I'm saying? I don't give a damn whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches the mice. So this ism and that ism, I don't give a damn. What is important is, am I delivering? Am I raising the standard of living of people? Am I bringing about the economic growth that I want? Whether this ism or that ism, it doesn't matter to me. The sooner our people here realize that, the better it would be. But a lot of people still have this hang-up of this ism or that. So we don't want to go into that. Important thing is, China did on its own, and China became the first country in the world, in the recorded history of world, to have more than 10% growth for 25 years in row. 2 months back, all the newspapers in India, including the big ones, were saying India has overtaken China. Is it true? I wish it was true, but it's absolutely wrong. 30 years back, India was ahead of China actually, in terms of per capita income. Today, Chinese per capita income is 5 times the per capita income of India, 5 times. So how is it that India is overtaking China? It is overtaking China in the sense that Chinese growth rate is coming down, and for the first time it has come to 7%. India's economic growth this year has crossed Chinese growth rate by a few percentage points. Theirs is 7% and ours is 7.3%. So in terms of the growth rate for 2014-15, we have done slightly better than China. That is not overtaking China. Remember, China's per capita income is 5 times the per capita income of India. And therefore it will take a long time for us to overtake China. China is and will be for the foreseeable future. I don't like to say this, but let us be realistic about it. China is today the number 1 country in the world in terms of the economic side, and we are getting close to them. We are trying to go close to them. India is still a distant 3rd largest country in the world in terms of what is called purchasing power parity. We don't want to go into that. But the point is, a lot of things were happening to India and China, but that happened in 1991 when India was going through this crisis and the metamorphosis. Something else was happening in the world. What was happening in the world? 1991 was also a year which was a turning point for the world economy, but for different reasons altogether. There were 2 things that were happening. One set of political factors was political factors. Soviet Union, which was a huge country, broke down into a number of countries. 1. 2, the Berlin Wall came down. There was the end of the Cold War between the United States and USSR. These were the political factors. And then there was something that you can easily relate to, technological factors, which brought about a big change. What were the technological factors? Emergence of computers, electronics and telecommunications. The revolutionary advances that took place in computers, electronics and telecommunications. That, combined with the political factors like breaking down of the Soviet Union, together these factors changed the world. They changed the world in so many different ways, but the easiest way to see is this. You know, all of us know, and Mahatma Gandhi said, that only thing constant in life is change, because change happens all the time, right? Change happens all the time. What happened in 1991 is that the pace of change, which was taking place until that point of time, started accelerating very fast. So we're talking about the pace of change, not the change itself, the pace of change. So much was the change that I dare say that the total change that took place in last 1 decade, from 1991 to the year 2000, the change that took place in those 10 years was larger than the entire change that took place in 100 years before that. So much was the pace of change. And that is happening even now. So after 1991 comes another turning point is 2001. 2001 was another turning point when something very, very important happened. As I told you, there was at the time of setting up the World Organization, IMF, the World Bank, and setting up the World Economic Order at the end of the Second World War, the rule was America, United States, Western Europe, and Japan. They would be the engines of growth for the global economy. And it remained unaffected, went on smoothly up to the year 2000. What happened in 2000 was very interesting. What happened was United States economy, after a strong expansion, started slowing down. US was slowing down. At the same time, Japan was already in trouble. It was below 0% growth. So the only other engine of growth that was left was the European countries, the Western European countries like Germany and France and the United Kingdom and so on. And going by the earlier rule, when United States economy was slowing down, when the Japanese economy was slowing down, the third engine was supposed to come forward. Western Europe was supposed to come forward and take on the mantle of maintaining the momentum of global economy, and that did not happen. So first time in the recent history of the world, what happened was there was a situation where all the engines of growth started slowing down at the same time. So important was this phenomenon that we economists gave it a name, and we called it synchronized global slowdown. All the engines of growth in the world slowing down at the same time. And that was the time when two countries suddenly catapulted to the world stage. First was China, second was India. And today, although the international organizations and the advanced countries do not recognize, fact of the matter is the biggest driving force in the world economy today is China and India put together. They are the biggest driving force. They are the new engine of growth. This had happened in the year 2001. So everything was going on well. India's economic growth, China's economic growth was 11%. India's economic growth was close to, as I explained to you, 1992 to 2002, 6%, 2002 to 2005, 8%, and 2005 to 2008, it was 9.3% per year. So it was like a dream run for India and China. And that suddenly, the dream run came to an end in 2008 because of the crisis that took place in the United States. In September 2008, there was a big crisis in the United States, in the financial system of the United States, and that was so big that it was called global meltdown. Global meltdown. That happened in the United States. It started with what was called subprime crisis. The financial system in America, people were given loans even when they were not creditworthy. So there were a lot of problems in the financial system of the United States, and because the whole bubble was created, that bubble had to burst. To say that, what they did was, you go to a bank, take a loan, on that they would securitize that loan and sell it to somebody else. Then that becomes asset of the second institution, they securitize and give loan to somebody else. That becomes securitization basis for somebody else. So on the same collateral, there was a big power grid. Now many of you are engineers, so you know that for any construction of tower, there has to be some relation between the height of the tower and the base of the tower. On the same base, if you go on increasing the tower, at some point it's going to collapse. That is exactly what happened in the United States in 2008, and that was called global meltdown. It was so severe that the growth rate of the United States became minus 3.7%, minus. So growth, there was no growth, negative growth, minus 3.7%. Western Europe, minus 3.5%. Japan, minus 3.2%. So all the advanced countries went into what is called deep recession. So that in the interconnected world, that was bound to happen to India, bound to affect India, China, and everybody. It did. Now that time, some of you, I don't know, but actually the faculty members will remember the debates that were taking place. In India also, a lot of people started saying that we are going to have a recession in 2008. I was the only one who was saying we are nowhere close to recession. आपण मंदीच्या अजिबात जवळपास सुद्धा नाही. What is recession? Recession is a situation where you have negative growth for 2 quarters in a row. By quarters, I mean the calendar quarters. Some people think about something else when they think about quarters. We're talking about negative growth rate in 2 consecutive calendar quarters. Are we going to come down from 9% to minus 0% and below? There was no chance. But a lot of people were saying that. You know why were they saying that? And this is really very, very strange. They were saying that some industrialists, in one big debate I remember, I was the only one saying that we are not even close to recession, and recession cannot happen in India. And they were saying it is going to happen. What was their strategy? Their strategy was very simple. United States had come out with a package of $800 billion, the largest ever package, bailout package. Western Europe had come out with five countries in Western Europe had come out with a bailout package of $1.3 trillion. China had come out with a package of $482 billion. So they were hoping that there would be a big package that will be coming in India also. So the Indian government is not that stupid. They were saying that, look, elections are around the corner. We are talking about 2008, September. Elections are around the corner. And the recession is coming. And Indian economy will go into recession. And we will have no choice but to retrench people. And if we retrench people, you know, it will be very tough for you to win elections. So they were trying to tell the government to come out with a package which will be serving them. I was the only one who was saying that we are nowhere with recession and that cannot happen. And it did not happen. And then some of these people are saying, but we have managed to avoid it. You know, please understand that the basic rule of economics is this. If everybody believes that there is going to be a recession, you know what? The recession will take place. If everybody believes that recession is coming, recession is going to come. You know what? Because if everybody believes that recession is going to come, what will you do? You will postpone what you are going to buy. Investment that you are going to make in housing, you will postpone. Any big capital durable good that you are going to buy, you will postpone. So if everybody tries to postpone what their demand is, it would create a deficiency of demand in the economy, and that will drag the entire economy so low that there can be a negative growth. So it becomes what is called self-fulfilling prophecy. Why were these people doing that? Because they were hoping to get something on their plate, without realizing that if everybody feels that there is going to be a recession, there would be a recession. Fortunately, that did not happen. Of course, we are affected. From 9% plus, our growth rate came down to 6.9%. which was about 2.3% below our growth earlier, which was hit, but not like a negative growth of 3.5% in the United States or in Japan or in Western Europe. So we were affected, but not that bad. Beauty about India, now Chinese economy from 11%, it came down to 8.5%. Indian economy from 9.3% came to 6.9%. Both of these economies bounced back beautifully and very, very quickly. Those days I had given a theory of U, V, W, that our economy can take a U-turn or it can take a V-shaped recovery. So deep sink, going into sink and coming up sharply, or it can be W, going down, coming up, going down again. And the worst alternative is L-shaped recovery, where there is a fall and then it stays like that. So we didn't want that. Fortunately, while the United States and other countries were still struggling to come out of the recession, India and China bounced back. Within 1.5 years, we were back on 8% growth. So it was very good. Then came the latest crisis, which is still going on. In 2011, the world was subject to another crisis, which is called Eurozone crisis, which we are still suffering from. What we are talking about, Greece, is part of that Eurozone crisis. So what is this Eurozone crisis? Please understand, European Union is one of the most ambitious experiments that has been made in their last 30-40 years, 40-50 years. It's a 48-year-old experiment. What they want to do is that all individual countries in Europe should behave like one country. So that is why there is a union, European Union. Now, for example, in the member countries, there is no visa requirement going from one country to another. So national boundaries are kind of become useless. Europe has become one. One of the most important part of that is currency union within the European Union. So there are 27 countries which have come together to form this union, of which 16 currencies gave up their currency and merged their currency into one common currency called euro. So euro was born as one currency. Not all European countries are member of have subscribed to euro. For example, United Kingdom, UK, Great Britain has their own currency still alive, pound sterling. Whereas most other countries, French franc is gone, and German mark is gone, they have all merged themselves into euro. 16 currencies have come together to form euro. All others have not. Now within this European Union, there are small countries and there are big countries. But there is a big theory, big explanation. I don't want to go into that. But look at it this way. The big countries within European Union have exploited the small countries within the European Union. As a result, some countries, small countries in European Union are in very bad shape. One of them is Greece. But there are 4 of them which are in very bad shape. And the acronym, the short form for them is very interesting. PIGS, they are called PIGS. Portugal, Ireland, Greece and Spain. These 4 countries are in the worst possible situation. They have very large unemployment. 33% of youth is unemployed. For example, take the case of Greece. It has 170% their total debt. They are so heavily indebted that their total debt is 170% of their national income. So you can imagine if their income is $100, their debt is $170. So 170%, that is terribly high. How did it happen? It happened because of the wrong policies of Greece. And they were encouraging Greece that you borrow more from us. So that kind of thing. That they allowed the Greece to go on extravagant way without creating the assets. And therefore Greece was going into a big debt. As a result, now Germany has given them loans of $240 billion. IMF has given them large loan. World Bank has given them large loan. Greece is a very small country, very small. It is, the GDP of Greece is only 2% of the GDP of European Union. Once upon a time, Greece was the country of Alexander, which ruled the world at one time. But today, it's a very small country. What happened is again very interesting for everybody. Because they are heavily indebted, the lenders have put all kinds of conditions on them. Because lenders will give you money to get back, right? They must get their money back with the interest. So lenders have started putting all kinds of conditions, including Germany and the other lenders, international institutions. They have started putting all kinds of conditions. So people are very nervous about it, very uneasy. Nobody likes anybody else to control their day-to-day life, So Greeks have been very, very uneasy. In January 2015, there were elections in Greece. And one party came forward and said, we don't like these restrictions which are being posed by outsiders. And if we come to power, we will not care about these restrictions. Now, they never thought that they will actually come to power. So they promise करने में क्या जाता है? अच्छे दिन तो आ ही जाएंगे. Promise करने में क्या जाता है? So they said that if we come to power, we will remove all these conditionalities and we will tell the world that no more conditionalities. We don't accept your conditionality. What they needed was put their own house in order. But election propaganda that was made was that if we come to power, we will get rid of this conditionality. And to their surprise, they actually came to power. The communist regime came to power. Right now that government is running the government. That government has come. Now there is a big problem for them. How do you lead in the promise? पुन्हा तेच सगळी सोनं आणता येतात, पैशाचं चोर आणता येत नाही. On June 30th, they were supposed to pay back certain amount of money to the IMF. They had no money to pay. So they were saying, give us more loan so that we can pay installments on earlier loans. Now that is becoming very, very difficult because unless you put your house in order, lenders are not going to have faith in your ability to repay in future. You are only postponing. Now that created a crisis. You know what the Greek government did? Like our Kejriwal, they said on this issue, let there be a referendum. So there was a referendum taken in the Greece that what should we do with the conditionality? Should we go out of the European Union because these conditions are very bad? See, the idea is you have to put your house in order first rather than putting the blame on somebody else. What these people cleverly did, referendum was taken around 30th June, and overwhelmingly Greeks said that this is a victory of democracy. We tell the lenders, go to hell, we are not going to pay you back. Now it's very easy to say that. Is that a victory? No, because the very people that these people were criticizing, they were touching the feet of those people that give us more loans so that we can pay you an installment. Now Germany is helpless. Why are the big powers helpless? Because there is a big international game that is going on. What is happening is that because of the ISIS crisis in Syria, lot of people who are coming out, refugees, which are living Iraq and Syria, they are trying to go to Europe. Greece is telling their other friends in Europe that we are going to allow them free entry through us. You understand? This is like threatening. It's like Bangladesh refugees or worse. These people are coming in and they want to go to all the welfare countries. They don't want to stay in Greece. And Greece is actually encouraging them. Greece has also been threatening them that if you don't give us more loan to pay back your early installment, we will go to Russia. And Russia, there is a big problem going on between Russia and the European Europe as a group because of what Mr. Putin is doing in some countries. So there are lots of sanctions imposed. Those sanctions can be vetoed by Greece in European Union. There is also possibility that a naval base in Greece would be given to Russia. That would be a big slap on the face of European Union. What has happened is, मराठीमध्ये परत सांगतो, ही अवस्था कशी झालेली युरोपियन युनियनची, धरलं तर चालतं, सोडलं तर पळतं. I'm sorry, I can't translate that saying into English. It cannot be done. So the issue is, the European Union doesn't know what to do with this country, because at the same time, they don't want the breakdown of European Union. That would be a big blow, and all their dream of one Europe is going to be hurt. So that is why finally the negotiations are taking place, and Germany and other countries are paying Greece more to pay the installment of the earlier loans. So they are only buying time. The only solution in the long term would be for Greece to put their own house in order. That they will have to do, but they have cleverly played their card and have bought some more time. Now, what will be the impact of this on Indian economy? Indian economy would be hurt, but we don't have any direct trade with Greece per se. The total population of Greece stays in hotels in India. It's such a small country. So that is not going to happen. However, we have a large trade with European Union, about $140 billion of trade. So that trade will be affected to some extent. What is more important is that if there is a breakdown of euro as a currency, then the whole world can go into a spin. Gold prices are already at their lowest in 5 years. Dollar is going to nobody knows, but gold is going to crash. Our stock markets are going to come down. A lot of things are going to happen. Have you wondered why is the Indian stock market been going so high, although our growth rate had slowed down below 5% by the old numbers? Before 2014, by the old numbers, our growth rate had come down to 5%. The stock market was 27,000 and 28,000 and 29,000. Why was that happening? What is important is what is happening in United States as well. Now, here, please understand this. China and United States, these two blocks I will talk about and then continue. See, you have to understand what is happening in both China as well as in the United States. China is slowing down. China is slowing down because they require reforms. And in China, what happened that Mr. Jinping, the president of China, he assumed that stock market must keep going higher, higher and higher. So he encouraged people to put more and more of their savings into stock market. People sold their houses or used their house as a collateral and put the money in the stock market. And they were successful for a particular period of time. But when the real economy in China started slowing down, the stock market started collapsing. And that, in the interdependent world, is hurting all of us. Now China has received very large amount of money as what is called FII investment, foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investment. And what happens to that? That remains to be seen. To do that, to understand that, we must know what is happening in the United States. As I told you, in 2008 there was a big crisis in the United States. After the big crisis in the United States in 2008, US economy went to drop, minus 3.5%. So American Federal Reserve, like our Reserve Bank of India, started following a very non-traditional monetary policy. What did they do was, they started what was called quantitative easing. There was the quantitative easing 1, quantitative easing 2, and quantitative easing 3. What is done under quantitative easing? That American Central Bank decided that they announced that every month on a particular day, they will buy, the Federal Reserve will buy so many of the government of United States securities and pump the money inside. So they will take the securities in their book and pay the government, which means that money would be pumped in the market. From the market they will buy the government securities and the money will be put in the market. So their policy is to encourage the growth, to resume the growth. What we must do is to lower the interest rate, keep the interest rate as low as possible, so it would encourage investment and that will bring about the turnaround in growth. That was the simple theory. So they pumped in very large amount of money in the US economy. Now US, so much so that their interest rates were below 1%. Can you imagine that? Close to 0%. They succeeded and now the economy is growing. Now finally the economy is picking up. There is some kind of relief now and the economy is picking up. But for 4 years in a row, they were having this policy of quantitative easing under which a lot of money was pumped in the American economy. What will that money do? If the interest rates there are low, that money is going to find place elsewhere. That money went to China, that money went to India. Last 1 year alone, $42 billion of the American money came into Indian stock market. In the Indian stock market. So although the growth rate was going down, why was the Indian stock market was going up? Because of this foreign institutional investment that was coming in from the surplus money created in the United States. Interestingly, in August 2013, Federal Reserve Governor made a statement that now that American economy is reviving, we are thinking in terms of tapering off this quantitative easing. That means no more pumping the money into the American economy in the manner that they were doing earlier. We will slow down. You know what was the effect immediately? In India, overnight, the rupee dollar rate went to 68. That was the lowest that rupee has reached overnight. So don't think that this is happening there. No, it affects us immediately. Why did that happen? What is the connection between the federal chief saying that we are going to taper off the quantitative easing and the stock market in India collapses and the rupee dollar rate goes to a crazy level of 68 rupees per dollar? Why? That is because the logic is very simple. Because the American economy is reviving and because of that the Federal Reserve was saying that we are going to stop or taper off this program, which meant that the interest rate in the United States economy were going to come above that 1% or below 1% level. They are going to come at a reasonable level. If they are going to come at a reasonable level, why should the money which has come out of the United States remain there? It is going to go back where it belongs because there the interest rates are picking up or expected to pick up. So there was so much fear that the large amount of money which has been pumped in the Indian stock market could go back. So much fear was there that rupee dollar rate collapsed, stock market collapsed. It went to 25,000 in the 2 days. I'm talking about August 2013. This time we are better prepared. Now, United States has announced that now they are going to stop their quantitative easing. which means that they have signaled that they will start raising their interest rate. But now this time we are much better prepared. What we did was, we accumulated a lot of very smart people, I can tell you that. We have accumulated a lot of foreign exchange reserves. Today our foreign exchange reserves are something like $370 billion. So we are not going to be very badly affected. We have now buffer stock that we have built, and that is our strength. So what will happen now is that, but the fear is there. Now if the Americans increase their interest rate, the American money which has been pumped into China and India, part of that at least will go back. To that extent will be affected. Here, we have a very strange advantage. You know, if United States raises their interest rate, yes, the money that was pumped in India will go back. But fortunately, in a way I'm saying, fortunately for us, Chinese economy is in big trouble or getting into big trouble. So large amount of money which is going out of China, a part of that may actually come into India. You understand? So the net effect on our stock market may not be negative, it could actually be positive. Little amount of money goes out of India, large amount of money goes out of China, but it doesn't go back to United States. It comes to a neighboring country like India, because India has a better future, or that is what the perception is. So anything can happen, and you must understand this. The only factor that remains to be discussed is the oil prices. I will talk 3 minutes about the oil prices and then stop. Oil prices, you know, in our country, as I told you, from $3 per barrel, the oil prices shot up by 300% in 1973. Then they went on increasing and putting countries like India into big trouble. And the governments have changed in India because of that. What happened in India, when the oil prices were going up, for whatever reason, the government did not pass on the increased oil prices to people. They took it in their budget, which means that there was a large amount of subsidy that was given. In countries like Japan, whenever the oil prices rose, they passed it on to people, made people pay. You want to use more oil? Pay for it. Our government did not do that. What we did was, for whatever reason, including positive reasons like kerosene is used by poor people, for whatever reason, they did not take a decision to pass it on to people. As a result, when the oil prices went to $112 per barrel, it was impossible for government not to pass on. You know, here there was a political mistake. If the government, I'm not talking about a particular government, I'm talking about all of them, NDA as well as UPA. If there was a slow rise in oil prices, people would have understood. But they did not take that decision for whatever reason. And when water went up to this level, then they started increasing the prices by big jumps. Big jumps, and that people hit it. You remember, $2 in 15 days, another $2, 2 rupees, 3 rupees at one shot in quick succession. That was when the situation was this much, so they had no choice. That was the situation before 2014 election. What has happened, again, Modi Sarkar is very lucky, I must say, in a way, that what happened is that world oil prices have crashed now. World oil prices, this is nothing that we have done. This is like that Mars, you know, somebody else had done it, and the new government says, oh, look, we have done that. So, you know, it goes on for a long time. This was not our own doing. It was something that happened. What is happening in the oil market is very interesting again. See, earlier, until now, the only dominant seller of oil was the OPEC countries, the cartel, the union of the oil producing and exporting petroleum exporting countries. Now there are 2 more countries that emerged as the big supplier. One is United States and the other one is Russia. Both of them have found a lot of oil and they have developed capacity to process. As a result, there are 3 big suppliers to the world market. One is OPEC, the traditional one. Second is Russia. Third is United States. Now, please understand that Saudi Arabia, which leads OPEC, is still the largest supplier. If Saudi Arabia wants to increase the prices, they can increase it in one day. How will they do that? They will simply reduce their output, whatever they are extracting. If they reduce by 50%, the world price will go up. Today, the price is below $50 per barrel. From 112, it has gone to, it went to $43. Today it is close to $50. So it is a great advantage for a country like India. So what we are doing, we should have ideally taken that advantage. I'll come to that. Listen to this. So what has happened in Saudi Arabia, if they want, they can jack up the price. But they are not doing it. Why are they not doing it? Very clever strategy. The marginal cost of production is very low for Saudi Arabia. Marginal cost of production of oil is very high for United States and very high for Russia. Very high. So what Saudi Arabia is doing, let the prices fall. Because we will still make profit. हमारे नफे में घाटा हो जाएगा, but we will not go into घाटा. Whereas Russia and America, where the marginal cost of production is very high, if the oil prices keep falling, they will go out of business. Once they go out of business, then we will increase the price. This is the trick that Saudi Arabia is playing, and that is why they are just waiting to see what happens. The oil prices, what happens to that remains to be seen. But another 2 years, they will not hit back to $100. At least 2 more years. So we have that advantage. So what should we be doing as a government? We should be very clever in that. When we have foreign exchange reserve, we must build capacity to store the oil. Do you know we have a capacity to keep oil on only 33 days? We should have capacity to hold oil for 3 months or 4 months. That would be a very sound investment, that you buy oil cheap when it is available, store it, rather than paying high price later. But we are still not doing that. The advantage of falling prices is only partly passed on to consumer. It is not passed on completely to the consumer, but the rest is used to make budget deficit look better than what it really is. I think that is also not fair. The whole advantage should be passed on to people, because you were passing on the disadvantage to people late, but you were doing that. Now we should pass on the advantage too. In any case, I don't think there is any substitute to our creating capacity, the institutional capacity to store the oil for 3 or 4 months, using our foreign exchange reserve and keeping in mind that in next 1 or 2 years, oil prices will again go back to $100. This is the advantage. This is a window of opportunity that we need to take. Now, where are we? Where we stand today, Chinese economy was fastest growing country in the world. The next one was India. Now India has overtaken China in terms of the annual growth rate for that year. That's it. So today, it so happens that India is the fastest growing country in the world. But remember, we are talking about very small base. Smaller growth on a large base like United States is better than large growth on a small base. Remember. So this is important, but we have to sustain that. Yesterday Moody's came out with a report about Indian economy. We have no choice but to grow at 8 or 9 or even 10% for 10 or 20 years. Then only we'll be able to eliminate the poverty that exists in our country. So while we are number 1 fastest growing country in the world, we have no choice but to sustain that growth and continue to do that. Unfortunately, looking at what is happening in the parliament, many of our economic reforms, most important ones are the GST, the goods and services tax, as well as the land acquisition and that bill, and many other things are apparently held up in the parliamentary process. I think that if we don't succeed in paying attention to this window of opportunity that we have now, we will have to regret. This is the time we need to put our act together, forget about the politics, put our act together, take advantage of this great opportunity that we have, and carry forward our country in a manner that we will not only remain as the fastest growing country in the world, but where the growth becomes inclusive, so that all the different strata of our society get the advantage of the growth, and that is how it becomes self-sustaining. That is something, inclusive growth is the only sustainable growth that we should be looking forward to. That is the direction in which to move. I think the politicians do realize that, but they have their own quarrels to settle. Earlier we put our act together and move in unison towards realizing our own potential. I can tell you that there is no way we can make it. One final point I'll make and stop, that I've gone all over the world. I can tell you with confidence that Indians are probably the most intelligent and smartest people in the whole world. And I'm not saying, just to pat ourselves on the back. I can give you many examples. For example, when I was teaching in America, I never taught in India, but I did teach in America. I was teaching, when I was teaching in America, I was teaching finite mathematics, and I was explaining to a girl student the matrices and determinants and those things. All of you are familiar with that. So I was telling her that, if you take a logarithm of a number, and then take antilog of that number, you go back to the original number. She looked at me and said, gosh, you are such a genius. Anybody in the 8th standard in Gadchiroli will know that you take a logarithm, take antilog, Another thing I tell you, we don't even understand this capability. Do you know that nobody in the world can do the kind of multitasking that the Indians can do? Americans are the worst. In fact, one day in America, I made a statement and I landed myself in trouble. I said that the only multitasking that an average American can do is to read a magazine while sitting on the potty. That is the height of the multitasking that Americans can do. Look at Indians. Look at us. Even a 5th standard guy, you go to a small village and go to a shop, you will find that fellow, तो एकाला पुरी बांधून देतो, दुसऱ्याला किंमत सांगतो, तिसऱ्याला हे करतो, चौथ्याला तो त्या दारामधल्या त्या टेलिफोनवर कोणी मागून पैसे काढत नाही हे बघतो आणि मध्ये तो आतमध्ये ते पोरगं रडतंय बघ. Imagine Americans do that. There is a very beautiful word in Indian culture. This is Ashtavadhani, not Ashtapailu, Ashtavadhani. You know what is Ashtavadhani? That means that a person who can keep track of 8 different things at the same time. Ashtapailu is not the same thing. Versatile is not the same thing. Versatile means that you do different things at different points of time. Ashtavadhani means you can look at 8 things and monitor 8 things at the same time. Please find, and I challenge you, in no language in the world other than Sanskrit and the Indian language, you will find this word Ashtavadhani. Because they haven't heard about it, we have got it, and that is why it is there in our language. I think we all deserve the right kind of environment to get the best out of ourselves, and then nobody can beat us. I wish all of you all the very best. Thank you.
I sure do hope that all of us would have some knowledge of the global economy and the Indian economy as well. I would now humbly request Dr. Kriplani and Deputy Director Dr. Deshmukh to felicitate our Chief Guest Dr. Narendra Jadhav. I thank all the students and teachers for being here and being patient throughout the program. It has been surely a wonderful evening. I would invite our Deputy Director and Dean Academics, Dr. P.B. Nagarnayak, to present the vote of thanks.
Good evening. At the outset, I am very much thankful to Dr. Narendra Jadhav for guiding us on this occasion. Definitely, his knowledge about the economy and complete global economy and its impact on India we have learned, and that will be definitely useful for all of us. Thank you, sir. I am thankful to Director Dr. K.K. Dhote for being present here and grace docket. I am thankful to the Director of the Institute, Dr. P.R. Bajaj, Deans, Heads of Departments, faculty members for their gracious presence, and last but not the least, all my dear students who have graced this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.